This video was brought to you by CuriosityStream. There's a fair bit of negativity in the air at the moment, but as the temperatures cool and we head into winter, things could be about to get worse. Now, Truss's new government is already taking actions to try and mitigate these issues, but the question is if their strategy is right, and if they'll even be effective. So in this video, we'll take a look at why, in spite of the government's recent announcements, the winter isn't set to be plain sailing, and try and predict how bad things might get. There are broadly three main areas of concern facing the UK over the winter: energy, the broader economy, and the NHS. Starting with the problems at play, and specifically energy, we've banged on about the energy price cap in quite a few different videos now. But the TLDR of it is that until very, very recently, households up and down the country were facing truly huge energy bills in the next weeks and months. Cornwall Insight were predicting back towards the tail end of August that the average energy bill would soar to £3,550 in October, before continuing to climb to just shy of £4,650 by January, and then £5,340 in April. Such a huge increase led to some pretty dire warnings, the most dire coming from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. According to the foundation, prior to any government announcement, the winter energy crisis would get so bad that the poorest fifth of families would spend almost half of their income after housing costs on energy. And low-income single-adult households were set to spend some 120% of their income after housing on energy. A situation described by the foundation as truly impossible, leaving people having to cut down on energy use, even to pay their bill, and having no money whatsoever left to buy food or other essentials. Now, thankfully, the government has since intervened in the form of the Energy Price Guarantee, which is, in reality, basically a freezing of the energy price cap at £2,500. And you should note here that this just means that the average bill will be capped at £2,500. It doesn't mean that if you use more energy, you won't end up paying even more. But even still, that doesn't mean that everything's hunky-dory. While prices are now under control, bills are now twice as big as they were back in 2019-2020. In any case, the problem now might not be limited to the price of energy, but also its availability. In large swathes of Europe, public officials have taken significant action to either reduce demand, secure supply, or both. The likes of Germany, France, and Spain have all mandated restrictions on the use of air conditioning and heating in certain buildings, with broader public information campaigns launched to try and get people to save energy. And on the governmental side of things, most governments have proactively tried to get as much energy as possible stored up. As of the 19th of September, Germany had some 220 terawatt hours of gas stored up. Italy had 170, France 112, the UK, well, just 9.8. Now, part of this is just a matter of where each energy company tends to get its energy from in the first place. Germany is notably far more dependent on gas from Russia, which, following their invasion of Ukraine and the barrage of sanctions, is no longer the most reliable country to buy your gas from. But the key element here is that, in a sheer numbers game, most of Europe is far more prepared for a harsh winter than the UK seems to be. In August, it was announced that the National Grid, the company responsible for managing the UK's energy supply, would double the length of its emergency gas drill, in light of fears that a potential supply crunch could come over the winter. But in spite of this, the government has not, for the most part, urged any further action. Liz Truss, the Prime Minister, explicitly ruled out rationing during the Conservative leadership contest, meaning that a seemingly impossible situation is on the horizon. In August, the European Council agreed to a voluntary reduction of natural gas demand by 15% this winter, and indicated that it would be possible for a reduction to become mandatory if a so-called union alert is declared. And while that might not sound the most fun, it does mean that Europe is pretty well prepared for the eventuality. When it comes to the broader economy, though, the energy crunch is feeding into a much broader economic crisis, with the cost of living continuing to soar, as well as domestic and international pressures pushing up inflation, forcing the Bank of England, the UK's central bank, to hike up interest rates. But what does all of that mean for winter? Well, it comes down to family budgets continuing to be squeezed. Interest rate hikes will ultimately mean higher mortgage repayments for many, and likely sharply dampen demand. And that's something that doesn't really gel with the government's broad aim of getting the economy growing. Now, some of you might be screaming out that interest rates have been higher before, so why are we worrying? And technically, you'd be right. Interest rates were a staggering 14.2% back in 1980. But back then, there was a significant slack to deal with higher rates. Finance didn't permeate every bit of life, with the likes of car finance in its infancy, to say the least. And so, when we account for the fact that more and more things are reliant on interest rates, we see an entirely different picture. That 14.2% rate, when adjusted for affordability, was more like 3%. And regardless, the current spike is rapidly approaching those record highs pre-adjustment, something that just doesn't seem sustainable. On the NHS point though, after the pressure of the pandemic, the entire service is straining. People have either dropped out of the workforce or are just in so much demand that services are stretched incredibly thinly, with no clear solution at hand. So as the common cold and winter ailments take hold, these pressures on every aspect of the health service are going to hurt, and hurt badly. So those are the three big issues that Britain faces going into the winter. Potentially not enough energy, and if there is enough, it's still very expensive. Interest rate rises that could make all kinds of payments more difficult, and an NHS that isn't really ready for the winter at all. So, I guess we ought to hope that either the Liz Truss government has something big planned, or maybe we should just strap in for a difficult winter. Well, that's all pretty miserable. If you want cheering up then, we have a bunch of more fun videos out there too, like our team attempting the British citizenship test, our blooper reel. On Wednesday, Peru's Prime Minister, oh God. I'm just going to ask next door, I'll be back. Turns out there's a bunch of useless next door. Our office tour, and our interview with TV expert Scott Bryan about why Piers Morgan and Talk TV are failing. Now, all of these videos are exclusive to the streaming service that we made with our creator friends, Nebula. Now, don't worry, I know that times are really tough at the moment, and that's why it's good news that Nebula is only about $1 a month if you sign up using the Nebula Curiosity Stream bundle. Here's how it works. We reached out to the good chaps at CuriosityStream and said, hey, you have a superb streaming service full of some of the most high-quality documentaries available online. They emailed back saying, you mean highest quality, but sure. Now, I don't always appreciate pedantry like this, but they're right, we should have said highest, and they put forward an offer that we couldn't refuse. They said that anyone who signed up to their streaming service using this link, it's in the description, don't worry, will get access to Nebula absolutely free. Now, I like free things, so we said yes. So if you click the link below, you'll pay less than $15 a year for CuriosityStream and all of the extra TLDR stuff on Nebula. That's just over $1 a month. So get yourself exclusive TLDR videos that will never come to YouTube. All of our videos ad-free, and some of our videos earlier than they come to YouTube by signing up now. For legal reasons, this exchange is entirely fictionalized, and honestly, I don't know how the deal was done. I'm not a legal kind of guy, so I wasn't in the room when it happened anyway. Also, just because I made this up doesn't mean that the rest of the stuff in this video wasn't true. Everything else I say is always 100% accurate, okay? Regardless, you should sign up.